Well, when I was a kid, I was exposed early on to farm worker theater, theater that was born out of our civil rights movement. Right after the African American civil rights came the Latino, which really started in the farm working fields of the San Joaquin Valley, where farm workers didn't have rights. In the urban centers, there were walkouts because of Vietnam, and so it was the walkouts, and it was the farm workers, and it was all kind of going on at the same time. I was a child at that time. Mm-hmm. And there was an amazing farm worker theater that was very, very active, like out in the fields, out in the campuses. And it was Luis Valdez's Teatro Campesino. And they later would use my dad's poetry for staging a theater. So just as a child, I just watched all that, and it just seemed very beautiful to me and very powerful. I think the bug was in me then that I wouldn't just be doing theater or musicals for entertainment's sake, but it seemed very powerful when you could mix the activism with the art and say something.
I know your father, Jose Montoya, is a poet.
Yeah.
And I wonder, and he was also sort of a poet activist in a way, like his work addressed social concerns as part of the work itself, like inextricable from the poetry. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you feel that having that influence so early on in life caused you to think of art as activism.
Diego Rivera was one of the first to, put it in that context that, for him, art and politics were inextricable, okay, to use one of your words. And that seemed like an act of love to me. And as a playwright, I try to capture the human side of the story, as well as the political concern, or what is the issue of the day. But when you can actually capture deeply human moments in a person's life, well, that's what Steinbeck did, and that's what our great writers have done. And so part of the responsibility of the artist is to temper that, because no one wants to go hear a political speech.
Right.
We can turn on CNN and see that, right? But how do you make it, deeply and richly human and even spiritual and political all at the same time? So I think they are interconnected, and I haven't been able to find that thing yet where we're just kind of putting on a show to put on a show. Even when we adapted a Greek comedy,
right.
The Greeks, by the time Aristophanes had come around, they were really taking shots at the Greek civilization. The tragedies had kind of come, but the comedies were satirical and brutal and took on the gods, and I just find that sort of theater very alive.
In what ways do you see comedy as a distortion of the human body, or a sort of expansion of it into a different kind of textuality, like through theater?
Well, in places like Albuquerque and Santa Fe, theater of the absurd is really popular right now. Mm-hmm. There's a Teatro Grotesco.
Right.
And when you go to these things, they're like b-boy happenings. They're like spoken word slam throwdowns. And you meet an Apache kid from a reservation that's a b-boy, and they're using their bodies. And then the comics come out, and they're doing Commedia dell'arte, which is an ancient form. Right. The huge, overblown genitalia. And I think in all that milieu and all that mix, there's some really important things trying to be said, about the landscape of our bodies, the political landscape, but also, the form or the human body. Because when you actually think that in the next year people will die in the Sonoran Desert trying to get to America, they're sacrificing their bodies. And they'll die on this side of the border, by the way. Yeah. And there'll be death on the other side. And that is at the apex of a lot of my work, that sort of seriousness. Mm-hmm. And how do I deal with it? I deal with it with, absurdity, through satire. There's not a lot of jokes to be had with something like that. But I've written a play about immigration that really makes people laugh and think, And what did Jesus do to his body? He sacrificed, his body. And what would we do if we saw Jesus walking towards us? I know what Sheriff Arpaio would do. But what would you do? He's filthy. He has a thick accent. He's you can barely understand him. And in that context, it uses, the visual image of the body. It poses a question to the viewer. The liberal has trouble with that question also. Because maybe we want to replace Jesus with Che, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you put in there. It's a deeply human idea. We give a dog water, and we have to give our fellow human, treat them, you know, with the same accord that we would give an animal. You know, it's whether it's Camille's artwork, which I collect in my home. I have a 9-month-old son, and that's one of his favorite pieces, and it's a spooky piece.
Right.
It's gothic, and it's her style. But somehow, viscerally, my son, 9 months, just really responds to this piece because he could be teething and inconsolable, but whenever I walk him in front of that particular painting, he just. And there's like a little girl in it, and my wife and I are thinking the little girl's his girlfriend, because every time he's like, oh, he just touches her, and so to see the child respond to that, there's Camille's in touch with some, you know, very deep, also humanistic elements in her work, even though that series of paintings is overtly political.
Right.
It's deeply human, and that's why I love the band Rage Against the Machine, because I think that those are really love songs. They're love songs because they care. You're almost this color now. No, that's okay.
Probably. This will be edited out of it.
No, keep it in so it makes it fun.